Good day, ladies and gentlemen. In the year of our machine lord 2023, we've gotten a lot of great remasters of a crap ton of classic games. And finally, at long last, our imperious lords at Night Dive Studios have delivered unto us a miracle. Finally, after many years of waiting, we have a remaster of Turok 3.
Turok 3: The Shadow of Oblivion was originally developed by Acclaim Studios Austin and published by Acclaim Entertainment on September 6th of the year 2000! Unlike the previous two Turok games, it did not receive a PC port and was thus entirely trapped upon the Nintendo 64. And it seemed like a remaster would not even be possible. Christmas came early this year, and Night Dive rendered unto us a miracle. On November 30th, 2023, we finally received a remaster of Turok 3 for the PC and every current year console. You can now play Turok 3 on something other than an N64 or an emulator like RetroArch. We have upgraded graphics, a new UI, some added areas that were cut out of the base game, a remastered soundtrack, but most importantly, we finally have a remastered frame rate. Even if you played Turok 3 on an emulator, it was dipping into slideshow territory here and there. The remaster, however, runs at a sweet 60 and never dips, and this makes the whole game a whole bloody bunch more fun to play. And these minimal enhancements were all that Turok 3 really needed, so now that the stage is set, what makes this silly dinosaur game so great? Turok 3: Shadow of Oblivion is a first-person shooter set in the Turok game universe and follows directly on from Turok 2. In this game, you are given a choice between two protagonists, Danielle Fireseed and Joseph Fireseed. The one you choose will become the new Turok. Each protagonist will have their respective abilities. Danny can jump higher and has a grappling hook, and is objectively the best! So much for no women in gaming. Joseph Fireseed is for boring people, stealth-focused gamers, and is able to crawl through vents and has nods. This gives the game a decent amount of variability. For me though, I prefer going for the Native American hottie with the shoddy Danny, as her gameplay and abilities appeal most to me, and we'll be seeing the game from her wonderful perspective. Turok is a first-person shooter series that has a reputation for having a shit ton of guns, and Turok 3 does not disappoint. Many of the staples return. My favorite weapon in the game is the Select Fire Carbine, and it's a great weapon that allows you to reach out and touch a bastard. Although it looks like an unholy amalgam of FAL and M14? Most importantly though, of all the guns that show up in this game, the Cerebral Bore returns from Turok 2. Gameplay for Turok 3 is a little different from the preceding two installments. Instead of being a hub-based shooter centered around huge levels, Turok 3 goes with the trends of the time. Turok 3 is a linear cinematic FPS, and thank the great Talos, the devs get it right. The game still features huge areas. They are smaller than the ones in the previous games, but there is more going on in a given level. Big problem with some of the levels in the previous games is that you could come across some dead space where nothing much is going on, and due to the somewhat obtuse natures of the previous games, you could find yourself getting lost or not finding that one bloody key or magic gun. But here in Turok 3, everything flows from one area to the next, and in addition to this, there is some great scripting to be found. Even though this game is much smaller and much shorter than the previous two games, the devs did not just make a bunch of hallways. They do the Raven Software thing, where they hide the way to progress in plain sight, but despite it being in plain sight, it can be easy to miss if you're not paying attention. This is similar in nature to the previous games, but way less annoying. We get boss fights in this game just like the previous games, and they are some great fights and really spice up the gameplay. And that's one of the major areas that was fixed by Night Dive. They rebalanced the difficulty. Night Dive increased health spawns considerably, and even certain enemies will drop health here and there. In addition to that, the game uses a very fair checkpoint system. If you play the game on normal and are below 20 points of health, and you die, you will spawn back to life with 50 health points. This makes the game less annoying and ensures that the player does not get frustrated and quit. You increase your health by picking up life points. I could use a few of those right about now. Once you collect 100 of them, you will have a permanent health boost, and you better believe you will need that late game. Like the previous games, you got your platforming and ladders. And the ladders are 90 standards, aka kinda terrifying, and like in the base game, you can easily hurl yourself into the abyss trying to get off of one. With that in mind though, the platforming has been cleaned up a bit and is much more fun to pull off. The controls have also been cleaned up and now you can use a keyboard/mouse and modern controllers. For this review, I used my 12-year-old Xbox 360 controller, the same controller I used to play the N64 game on RetroArch. Needless to say, the remastered version plays quite a bit better. Some might mock the N64 controller. I say that it was ahead of its time, and remarkably, the Turok games controlled a lot like the two joystick FPS games that would come about in the early 2000s. Still, emulating the original Turok controls on a modern controller was still kind of painful though, and I'm glad that we have the remastered version so we can use proper modern controllers. Graphically, the game was really impressive on the Nintendo 64. Here, the graphics have been upscaled a bit, and the 3D models have been improved. However, the animation is still a bit stiff, but there was only so much Night Dive could do. Still, the game looks remarkably good. Hell, the whole Turok trilogy looks good even to this day. Night Dive did the best they could with the sound. And remember, this was originally an N64 game, and thus the sound had to be extremely compressed to fit on that bloody cartridge. Night Dive remastered all the sounds and the music, but the voices are gonna be pretty crunchy, because they had to be ripped from the cartridge. So that might be a bit jarring to first-time players, but you get used to it. Music for the game was great in the original N64 version, and is great here. It's not my favorite soundtrack of the trilogy, but it's still as high quality as the two other games. One of the most impressive aspects of this game are the sheer number and complexity of the cutscenes. In Turok 1, there was next to none, and in Turok 2, there was a moderate amount. Here, you could mistake this game for something on early PlayStation 2 for how many they are, and they look amazing, and ensure that we got a story in addition to the excellent gameplay. I won't be going too deep into Turok lore due to already having reviewed Turok 3 back in 2020, so if you want a deep dive into Turok lore, check out the video link in the description, but here is the short and long of it. Turok is a title, not a guy. The mantle of Turok falls upon the Fireseed family, and in the previous game you played as Joshua Fireseed. I originally said he was the main protagonist for the Turok trilogy, but that was wrong. However, he was the main protagonist for the comics and the novels. In Turok 3, he gets dead, and now Danielle or Joseph Fireseed must take up the mantle of Turok. A fan once asked me a question about how there could be two light burdens, and a light burden is the magical bag that Turoks carry all their weapons in. Here, I think there is just one, and that one is given to the character of your choice, meaning old Joey Boy is gonna be strong when the game is over. Your objective in the game is to take down Oblivion before he can destroy the universe. There is also deception and deceit that you must deal with. Can you be a bad enough Fireseed to save the Earth and the Lost Land? Now, finally, everyone can see just how good Turok 3 really is. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have to ask an important question. Are these remasters going to appeal to new gamers or just give old gamers like myself an ability to relive their past? I have to say, a lot of these remastered games have managed to stay the test of time. Old games are in many respects a bit better than modern games. I hate to say it, but as tech got better, games got worse. A game like Turok 3 might not look like much, but it's got it where it counts, kid. And one of the important aspects of this particular review, and the review I did back in 2020, is that I like the game even though I have no childhood connection. In the year 2000, I, for whatever reason, had never even heard of Turok 3 Shadow of Oblivion, and I didn't play it until I was an adult, and I still was able to enjoy it. These games were able to stay the test of time because the developers were trying to create art and not content.
At last the circle is complete, and we finally have the entire Turok trilogy on the PC and modern day consoles. And you better believe that in the year of our machine lord 2024, that I'll be taking a look at the other Turok remasters. Until then, I am General Lotz, wishing you good Turok 1 Remaster and good Turok 2 Remaster, whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.